Major Garrett joins us now from the White House. Major, it sure seemed like Sean Spicer felt President Trump should get the credit for firing Michael Flynn, but none of it for hiring him.
Right, exactly. And if you want to ask any questions about how it was that Michael Flynn got into the White House, check with the Obama administration, acting as if that's the only gatekeeper for the president's first national security advisor. And if our viewers caught, it was a very brief interaction, but I think it's significant. So I want to illuminate that if I could. Zeke Miller from Time Magazine asked about what Sean Spicer said at the podium the day after Michael Flynn was dismissed. He said the issue of being untruthful to the Vice President, Mike Pence, about the conversations he, Michael Flynn, carried out with the Russian ambassador to the United States, Sergei Kislyak, and other instances led to his dismissal, and other instances. Sean Spicer said, or implied today, that yes, those other instances involve things that have come to light since Michael Flynn, the National Security Advisor, was dismissed. Among them, that he was a lobbyist for the government of Turkey without disclosure, and that he accepted a sizable amount of money for a speech from RT, a Russian government-backed entity, without either obtaining permission or providing proper disclosure. One of the things that has now triggered a Defense Department Inspector General investigation of the former National Security Advisor. And my question to the White House press secretary was, where was your vetting during the transition about these issues? And both of them, lobbying for Turkey and accepting funds from a Russian-backed entity, would not have complied in any way, shape, or form with what candidate Trump promised the country about either draining the swamp or bringing the highest ethical standards to his administration. And the only response Sean Spicer had was, well, the Obama administration gave him a security clearance. True enough. But what was the standard for Michael Flynn to work in this White House and be the person closest to the president inside the West Wing, providing national security advice and counsel? That remains a mystery. And to underscore how sensitive this topic is, when I asked Sean Spicer, well, all right, he's been dismissed. You've learned all these other things. Do you regret bringing him in? Still not comfortable saying that. All that Sean Spicer will say is Michael Flynn is gone, and that's a good thing. And what I think he means by that is all this other stuff, since disclosed, would have become known to the public, and he would have been an even bigger political problem than he was at the beginning moments of this administration, which lasted for Michael Flynn all of 24 days.
Wow, I didn't realize it was 24 days, Major. So what's the sense, Major? Why do you think it is the White House seems to be bending over backwards to make sure not to be critical of Michael Flynn?
One can wonder about that, and one might reasonably suggest to oneself, well, Michael Flynn might know a lot about the campaign, the inner workings of it. He was a significant surrogate for candidate Trump, traveled with him around the country, spent a lot of time on the Trump plane, spent a lot of time at Trump Tower during the transition. He might know a very good deal about the intricacies of the campaign, the intricacies of the transition, and what may or may not have taken place with either Russian entities, Russian operatives, those who are representing themselves on behalf of the Russian government, or others who are trying to find out information or seek collaboration with the Trump campaign or the transition. All of those things are speculative questions, subject to separate investigations by the FBI, the House of Representatives, and the United States Senate. And when Michael Flynn and his attorney, who represents him, talks about obtaining immunity, what they're seeking immunity from is potential prosecution. So all of that creates what you could, I think, reasonably call a wild card, an X factor for this White House and this ongoing investigation about foreign involvement in the 2016 campaign, especially as it relates to Russia. So if you do not want to antagonize a potential witness, you don't. And I think it's fair to say, based on what the public can judge for itself about what this White House does say and does not say about Michael Flynn, is that it is very, very nervous about creating an atmosphere with a potential witness that could be construed by that witness as hostile.
As the investigation continues, Major, before I let you go, I want to ask you about health care. We heard Sean Spicer say the president wants a vote on this. How's that shaping up?
So the president no longer is going to issue, as he did the first time around, an ultimatum for the House of Representatives to hold a vote, because that blew up in his face. The ultimatum was given, and there were not the votes, and the Speaker of the House had to come over here to the White House, hat in hand, and say, Mr. President, we don't have the votes. So if you want this thing to collapse and really look ugly, go ahead. But why don't you just take the ugly I've given you instead of the super duper ugly that it's going to be if we fail to pass this on the House floor. Let's give us another chance to bring the bill back, see if we can resuscitate it. That's the process that's going on now. And the resuscitation process, if you allow me to indulge in a medical metaphor, is working out pretty well. The conservative factions within the House of Representatives, the Republican side, are much more enthusiastic about this redrafted version of the repeal and replace bill, and they're on board. Moderates, not so much, but the process is closer to that magic number of 216 than it ever has been, and the White House has some degree of optimism that not this week, but next week, the House may be prepared to actually have a vote on this and move it along to the Senate, and then a whole new set of negotiations and pressure points will emerge.
So we'll tag this one on healthcare, not DOA. Dead on arrival continues. I want to ask you also about NAFTA, the renegotiations going on. Where is that headed? What are you hearing?
So when Sean Spicer says, well, Congress has been informed, okay, Congress has heard what the president has said. That's what he means. As far as a formal declaration, which is the process that has to go on, that has yet to occur, because you need a United States Trade Representative to do that. Robert Lighthizer, the current nominee, will be confirmed by the Senate in the very near future. After that happens, Congress can be informed. Then you open up negotiations, this administration does, with Canada and Mexico on a process to reevaluate NAFTA, to modernize it is the phrase that you're hearing. I've heard some lawmakers refer to it as NAFTA 2.0. It was signed in the early 1990s and agreed to then put in force in the late 1990s in all of its various ways. And after some 16 to 20 years, many in the United States, Canada, and Mexico agree it could use and stand for some updating. How it's updated, who benefits, who loses, what are the contours of those updates, all subject to negotiation. But clearly this White House rattled financial markets yesterday. Some in this White House probably intentionally did by floating the idea of an immediate withdrawal from NAFTA. The president put that down rather rapidly and got telephone calls from the Mexican president and the Canadian prime minister to clarify that. And so now this is back into a situation of negotiation, which gives everyone breathing space and no longer alarms financial markets, which thought the United States could pull out of this multilateral trade agreement and cause a lot of ripples, not only the economy here in the United States, but in Canada and Mexico.
Yeah, the Mexican peso took a hit, so did the Canadian dollar yesterday. Our Major Garrett, Chief White House Correspondent. Thank you, Major.
Sure.